have you ever sold a short story or novel without getting any critical feedback on it whatsoever? And if so, was it to a pro market or a semi-pro market? So can anyone say yes to that question? Because I can't.
I can say maybe to that question. I was actually, when I looked at that list when I saw this on the list of questions, I actually went back through my sales and looked at the stories. Like, did I get a critique on? Yeah, I got a critique on that one. Did anybody look? Yeah, somebody looked at that. Yeah, I got that one too. I think I found one, and again, it was an old story, one that I'd written pre-Odyssey, that I might not have gotten any kind of critical feedback on. I'd just done a couple of drafts, sent it out. It was not to a professional market. That is to say, it was to a British market, and I think it was the kind of equivalent of maybe 2-3 cents a word at the time. But that was the only one, and like I said, that was an older one, pre-Odyssey.
I know someone who wrote a story in 4 hours. First draft, and sent it in and sold it.
Wow.
Yeah.
I hate that person.
To a pro market?
Or semi-pro.
Wow.
Yeah.
I've sold. If I'm correct, and I was looking at my past sales too in preparation of this, I think I've sold 3 without doing the critique group on them, and these were just semi-pro markets.
Okay, we hate you too, Nicole.
Yeah, exactly. In the best of ways, of course.
Yeah, that's okay. I accept that hatred. It's cool. But again, a lot of these. Reason why I didn't run it by a critique group was one was for a horror anthology of stories relating to classical music, and so this was a classical music story, a horror story based around a symphony by Dmitri Shostakovich. So again, I'm looking at frame of reference of possible readers and thinking, while there are some things that beta readers might pick up as far as, any spelling mistakes or typos or that kind of thing, I felt really confident about my ability to kind of pull off the story itself. But it was, so I just kind of waited and, did another look at it with revision and that sort of thing. So again, if it's kind of a niche kind of story where sometimes I feel more confident with that. If it was more of a general market kind of story, I would probably be more, driven to run it by readers.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I mean, I do like horror fiction, but yeah, I found that it's a little bit hard to sell those sometimes. Maybe I'm running it by the wrong readers. It's possible. So.
It's interesting.
There are markets and there are some markets in science fiction and fantasy that will accept horror fiction, and that's the whole topic of horror and selling horror is, that could be a whole episode in and of itself, I'm sure. But I've been able to find places to sell, and places I feel really comfortable with, selling stories to. But it's just a matter of kind of knowing that community. I think the conventions of that kind of fiction, and I think it's the kind of thing that you need to really feel passionate about. And I think passion is a good thing for any fiction, to have. So that's one of the reasons why I focus on horror fiction. It's something, I feel passionate about the past of horror fiction and the literature and the history and previous authors like Shirley Jackson and Edgar Allan Poe, and I feel passionate about carrying it forward into today.
Yeah. Okay, so let's see.
Well, I just wanted to touch on just something that Nicole had brought up there. Nicole, you said you talked about how if it's a kind of a niche sort of piece, you might not have the expertise in the critique group to properly analyze it. What's interesting to me is I have been kind of consistently amazed. I know I was very amazed when I was at Odyssey at the general body of knowledge that was represented there. We had a room full of 15, 20 people, and I remember one story in particular that came up. It wasn't mine, but it was one story that we were doing in class, and it featured at one point an attack by a wild boar. And so, at one point, one of the critiquers said, "Well, I've been on boar hunts before," and then went on to tell exactly what the writer had gotten wrong with the boar hunt. The boar is never that big, or something. I was just like, at that point, I just kind of threw up my head and said, "You got to be kidding me! You got to be kidding me!" And it's just like somebody is an expert. You get a room full of 15, 20 people. Someone's an expert in it. It just kind of amazed me.
Wow.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect that. Yeah, I also went through Odyssey, and I found it kind of ranged all over the place. Like, there were people there that were romance writers that were just there because they wanted to get more of a science fiction fantasy background, and there was the range of, like, people that had made professional sales, people that were just starting out, and people that had written multiple novels, people that had only been writing short stories. 16 people. I guess, like, the person that runs Odyssey says that 16 people is an ideal number. And or that's what she'd found after a lot of experimentation. And it was kind of interesting. Like, you did see patterns emerging. Like, you could generally tell after the end of it if their reaction was generally negative or generally positive, even if not all of them got the story. And usually you'd get one person that just didn't get it at all, and everybody else would just be like, "Oh, come on, so obvious," and just kind of get on that person's case. I thought that was cool.